What's going on? I'm going to take a few minutes and make some space in my workspace, which has gotten crowded while people show up. And then we'll do something. Do something. The stream is not live. Do not be mistaken into thinking that somehow the stream is live. It is not, because the robot knows. The robot knows everything. Do not let anybody try to tell you that the stream is live. All this stuff I have back here. What is all this stuff? We have a little more space. A little more. How's the closed beta going? It's going well. Not that eventful right now because the beta is small. But that's fine. That's the way I like it. Just some people out there have the compiler and they're doing stuff with it, and that's good. We will slowly, over time, make the beta bigger. Dude, this new Twitch chat interface is so bad. Like, I'm trying to make it big on my laptop with a big font, and you can only do that by scaling up everything. So, like, it's got this same problem that Visual Studio has, where only about 40% of my screen is useful lines of chat. If I put it on the same computer that I'm programming on, we've proven that that is an exercise in folly for all kinds of reasons. Not least of which, that on modern Windows, you can't tell which window is in focus, especially if you have multiple monitors. Can it be compiled to WebAssembly? Probably. We haven't done it, but it probably isn't that hard. You were thinking about the collapse of civilization talk and how I mentioned stress of the global system. It seems like this virus might be a stressor to the system with more people working from home and not supervising software. Well, I think I would qualify this as a mild stressor to software so far, but you know, things will start getting more extreme. So for example, people don't communicate as well remotely as when they're in face-to-face, so they don't solve problems as well. So if code is hard to understand, it's now harder to understand, right? Various flavors of geopolitical tensions may flare up because, you know, the usual disagreements become heightened when there's more on the line. I don't know, like you can't really predict the future, right? The thing that I would say is hope this, I'm cleaning the microphone right now. It's probably making annoying noises. The thing that I would say is, if you're trying to estimate disruption, you don't just want to account for the fact that there's a virus that makes everybody sick. You want to account for what does that mean in terms of everything else, that normal processes are disrupted by something that we can't really fix very easily unless one of these, one of these therapies that looks promising actually is as good as it sounds, which might happen too. But that's the thing to think about. Cleaning the microphone to make sure there are no coronavirus germs on the microphone. Kind of needed it, honestly. I probably should have muted the microphone while doing that. Do I think Elon is right that we're overreacting at this point? No, I do not. In fact, I lean on the other side. I would say that we're not reacting enough, not just because people generally underestimate the magnitude of power law things, but also just because we don't totally know everything about this virus yet, right? So like people... Okay, sorry about that. The cable on the microphone was a little bit loose. And so I don't know what people said, but it was just virus stuff anyway, so it's not important. Yeah, this microphone has a USB, one of the weird shaped USBs coming out the back, one of the kind that like cameras use and stuff. And it's awkwardly placed and ill-fitting, and and the socket isn't very good, and it gets unplugged easily. What do I think about the claim that the virus is I don't know. I honestly don't believe, like basically anything you hear about virus stuff, you have to take with a grain of salt, even if it's in an academic publication. I mean, those are better than just reading it somewhere randomly on the internet, but a lot of those publications to me look non-scientific. So you just be careful what you read. Is Carmack on Twitch by any chance? Not that I know of. He might be. I don't, if he is, I haven't seen it. John Romero's on Twitch. I saw him, he streamed like yesterday. I'm now going to wipe down my phone, as everybody should do. Make sure there's no viruses on your phone. Because if they were there, they might crawl through the phone when you message somebody on Instagram. And that'll be bad, because then the Instagram bathwater will be polluted by the viruses on your phone, and then that'll go out to everybody, and it'll just be really bad. So don't do that. Don't put your viruses in the bathwater. What is the name of the... I was just looking at my Twitch chat on the laptop and then the window closed, I guess. No, it just went under a different window for no reason. Like I can't even use computers anymore. I don't know what's going on. I wasn't touching the laptop or anything. What is the name of the colon colon operator? That is not an operator. Each colon is a separate thing. But two share bath water. Well, you know, I, not being a medical doctor, I will not make recommendations about whether you should order bath water over the internet during a virus situation. But you can maybe exercise your own judgment on whether that's a good idea. Yeah, it is basically constant declaration with type inference. The double colon is just a double colon because there's nothing between the colons, which means that the compiler should infer what should be between the colons. Okay, are there any technical programming questions? We've got a bunch of people here now, so any on-topic programming questions, and we'll maybe do that for a couple minutes, and then we can proceed to actually working on things. What animation data are you storing per vertex? Animations are not really per vertex. The typical way animations work in a current day 3D game, which is the same way they work in this game, is each vertex has some number of bones that it is associated with. Our limit is 4 bones per vertex, and that's usually what the limit is for various reasons of rendering efficiency, although that's not a real, like conceptually, and you could certainly write a program that has a much more than 4 bone per vertex limit. Anyway, what that means is, each bone in an animating skeleton is just, a linear transform that animates over time. And so each vertex, you can imagine it being dragged around by each bone individually, right? So if it's tied to 4 bones, you can just sort of imagine where it would go for each bone individually, and then you average all of those, and that's where it ends up. Except it's not actually an average, a straight average, because every vertex has a series of weights. So like, how close is it tied to this bone as a number between 0 and 1? And how close is it tied to this bone between a number of 0 and 1, right? And as those things move, the vertex will then get, stretched around by those bones. And if I'm not forgetting something and being stupid, that is basically the total amount of per vertex animation data that we have. And so most of what happens in an animation is just the bones animating. Now, in some animation systems, you have other things happening. So for faces, for example, those don't lend themselves very well to bone systems. So you'll tend to have what's called a blend shape, which is basically animation data per vertex, maybe compressed in some way to make it smaller. But we do not have blend shapes in this game because in this game, our characters are very small on the screen. This isn't like, The Last of Us or something where it's trying to be a plot-based, character-based game. Our characters are very small on the screen, and so we don't do facial animation, really. I mean, if we did do a little bit, it would just be in the bone system. Have I ever implemented a voxel rasterizer? I feel like I did do one just as an experiment, like way back in the 90s, but it wasn't very serious. And the technology to do it today would be very different. So I don't have much to say about it. You would like to see me doing GUI app development just for the fun of it. Well, we did do that a little bit. Like I did a replacement Braid launcher box on stream at one point. I don't know if that's archived. Just a quick abstract of what we will do today. It is a continuation of yesterday's stream about character turning. When I showed String Builder, there's this function called free buffers. If you were to include that file in your code, does that mean you can't name any other function free buffers because of name collision? No, because we have function overloading. So you can have as many functions of any given name as you want, as long as they don't have exactly the same parameter list. Just like, C++ has that. So it's like C++ in that way. If a website like Twitter were programmed as well as possible, how do you think the computational demand would be compared to a demanding 3D game? Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think you need to sort of, to make that comparison, you need to make it a per capita comparison, right? Like, how much work does Twitter do per person compared to how much work a 3D game does per person? In the ideal case where each one is programmed perfectly, and there's no comparison. The 3D game is doing tons and tons and tons more work than something like Twitter. Even though, yes, I know, Twitter has to do like database stuff to, not only figure out who to send the tweet to and who's blocking it and whatever, it has to it's doing all sorts of tracking for like nefarious advertising and monetization purposes. Despite all that, like people who think that that's a lot of computation have no idea what 3D games do, dude. It's crazy what 3D games do. So it's not even close. The amount of computations that games do is just huge. And so that's why I really have not much tolerance for when web programs like that are very slow. Now that said, doing the fast version of something like Twitter would involve making your own database instead of using a generic one and things like that, because you know exactly what operations you need to do and you know how to make them fast and so forth. And that's something a lot of programmers would say, oh, you should never do that because if you make your own database, you'll make mistakes. And it's like, look, there's nothing that magical about a database. There is a lot of hard work that goes into it for things like reliability. And, well, it's like a game engine, right? A database is like a game engine where, sorry. That's not virus cough. That's me drinking something in slightly the wrong way to cough. Like I was saying yesterday, for anyone who was there, making an engine for your own game is much, much, much easier than the job of somebody who's working on Unity or Unreal, because they have to make an engine that like kind of works for everybody, right? Where you can't assume anything about the target case. And it's the same thing with a database. Like, if it's your job to like make Oracle or something, you have a wide variety of people trying to use the thing with a very wide variety of use cases, and you have to deal with all of those and like not break any of those, right? If you're making a specific website that works a specific way, you know exactly what you want to do. And so if you actually have the ability to program your own, database-like code, then you probably should. And people freak out about that. They say like, oh, it's so hard. And it's like, it's not really. Like, the thing is, you have to think very transactionally, even just to make modern day multi-threaded code, like not database code, but regular code on a multiprocessor, right? So if you can do that, then making a database is a little bit more than about robustness to faults, right? So like what happens if the thing goes down in the middle of while you're writing a thing or whatever, right? And again, solving those problems is much easier in the specific case than it is in the general case, because you know which data is really important, right, versus what's ancillary. If you use a little bit of ad tracking data because somebody shut off or the machine lost power in the middle of doing a write to disk, that's not that bad, right? And so you can design something very specifically for that. Real databases also have stuff like that. It's, different priorities of storage and stuff, but it's just, it's again, the general case is way harder. And so if you were to do the actual optimal thing of something like Twitter, it would be orders of magnitude faster. It would just smoke it. Like it wouldn't even be close. I mean, you could make it orders of magnitude faster just by reprogramming it in C and not allocating memory on the heap all the time without even changing anything about, databases or whatever. You would get rid of, I actually don't know if Twitter has done this. Like the first step is get rid of whatever generic web server you're running and, make your own server. Well, for a lot of sites, the very first step would be just serve static pages all the time wherever possible, but that doesn't make that much sense for something like Twitter. So I don't know. I don't want to get too much into it, but like actually doing that, making it fast, would involve working in a way that web people never really do. And so it's not going to happen. Do I have any recommended resources for learning how to build 3D animation systems? Or do I recommend just sitting down and trying what seems obvious? I recommend just sitting down and trying to build a specific thing, because then at least you run into some problem or something you don't understand. And then you have a specific thing to try to look up or try to learn, as opposed to like, how do I make 3D animation, right? Which is a very broad question. It might be like, oh, how do I get the data from an editing package like Max or Maya into my program, right? That's a more specific question. Or like, oh, how do I interpolate between two frames of an animation because the animation is authored at 15 FPS and I want to run on a 240 hertz monitor, right? Those are very specific sub questions that enable you to research them more effectively. And then once you've done that, it's another like brick in the wall of your understanding, to choose a non-apt metaphor. Oh, and that was actually the next question. Can you explain how the animation is exported from apps like Maya? Do you have to basically re-implement skinning in engine the way it's done in the animation app? Yeah, you basically do. So when I was talking about the way skinning is represented before, you basically have to, what you implement at render time has to be equivalent to what was used at authoring time, right? Now, fortunately, that's not that hard because the standard for it is like very simple. There are all sorts of very complicated things that could be happening in the 3D authoring tool, right? It could be running physics on things to make them springy or whatever. But in general, what happens then is that stuff, you just sample it, right? So whatever all the plugins and stuff that are running, you don't worry about any of that. It's just you have your plugin play back the animation, right? And look at the positions of the vertices on each frame, or really the positions of the bones if you're not doing blend shapes, and just export that. And all the physics will have already affected all of that, so you just ignore all that stuff. And so really it's fairly straightforward what you need to deal with, right? It's an array of linear transforms that changes every frame, and then that set of weights that maps the vertices to the linear transforms. And those two things are pretty standard and simple, and thankfully so, because if you actually had to reproduce like the effects of all kinds of plugins and whatever, then it would be bananas. Okay, I ran out of highlighted questions. Someone says if backend code for Twitter has more than 15 to 20K lines of code, everyone there should be ashamed. Dude, I don't know how much code is in the Twitter backend, but it's probably more than 1 million lines, because that's just what happens when you have that many programmers working on something. I don't even know, and I do think that's an underestimate. Like, I don't know if I could implement a good version of Twitter in 20,000 lines on the back end. Just because, you know, there's lots of little things that you need to add. So, I mean, I don't know how many lines it would be, but 20,000 lines really isn't very much. Who knows? Do you use FBX as the intermediate format before you get to proprietary animation data? No, we just export straight to our own, you know. We use Maya or 3D Studio Max. Those are really the only two tools that we care about. And so we just have exporters that export into our format from those. And, you know, they work out just fine. What's a good way to learn lower level stuff from being a web developer? You've been learning C, but also end up learning game stuff at the same time. Again, I think just start trying to do something very specific, like a very specific personal project that you want to do, and then just see what you need to know in order to be better at that project, right? What are you stuck on? What did you do but you don't feel good about, right? That sort of thing, and then go from there. Have I worked at a big company? I've never worked at a super big company. I have done a little bit of work on larger game teams, or quote, large, unquote, for back in the day, which was like 100 people or 150 people. But no, I've never worked for a Google scale company. I would go insane at that kind of place. For timers, do you just accumulate DT, or do you have a use for OS timers? Well, I'm not sure how you get the DT without an OS timer. I mean, I guess if you're running on a game console, you can assume a fixed frame rate, but on a PC you cannot. Even if you say, I want to be V-synced to this monitor, and the monitor reports a 60 hertz frame rate, you can't assume that that's actually going to happen, not least of which because end users can turn off VSync in their driver. So on PC, you definitely need to use the operating system timer to know what time it is. What do I think of puzzle games that rely on procedural generation for puzzle design? It's usually not that interesting. I think some games do that better than others, but what's interesting to me is the kind of thing that humans design in puzzles, and when that's missing, then they could be a little bit interesting, but they're just not that interesting to me. What type of compression do you use to store mesh data? Right now, none. Just our meshes are not big enough to care. Texture maps are much, much bigger than meshes. And so you tend to use one of the standard texture compression formats for those. Meshes, they're not that big. You mean using OS timer APIs to get timer events based on real time? No, you never want to do that. You mean like have the OS wake you up at a certain time? No. No, you don't want that. How do you version binary data files? You put an integer at the start of the file saying what version number it is. Did I find a solution to the OBS related issues? Not really. In fact, I think, yeah, see, this is still kind of choppy for everybody as I run around. It's not choppy on my screen. It's choppy on OBS though. So maybe I have to downgrade to an earlier OBS, or maybe there's something about this PC. I don't know. Would I have the patience to teach somebody game animation with zero coding or animation experience? No. Learn to program first, or learn to animate first. Like, why are you bothering me if you don't want to learn that stuff? Is AMD still installed? You know, I don't know. I killed it, but it might be running again. Okay. Let's start doing some stuff. So on yesterday's stream, which I'll post it to YouTube eventually, but we worked on simplifying the way that turning happened so that I didn't have to like do weird things to deal with turning and mirroring of characters in the gameplay code. And so that is done. I just reminded me that I wanted to go back to the shader and re-enable something. So here, we just want to put this back to where it was. Yeah, it's still fine because these two characters are mirrored from each other up here. And they're still good. So what we did yesterday was sort of a subtask, right, of simplifying this thing. And then what I want to do today is change the way that rotation is managed. So right now, when I turn, right, as we discussed, you have a gameplay orientation or angle that you're facing, which is invisible, which sort of snaps between 90-degree versions. And then you get visually interpolated from one direction to another as you move, and that direction is smoothed out. And that's either controlled by an animation or it's controlled by code if no animation wants to control your facing direction. Now, the way the code that's in there right now is sort of, you know, the movement system changed time and time again, and we're finally on what will hopefully be the final movement system. But the fact that the rotation is not totally handled by the movement system has some side effects. So for example, here, if I teleport, if you watch, it flickers kind of unpleasantly, and maybe it's fast enough that you're not sure what's going on. But if I slow down time here, you'll see that as soon as my red guy starts to teleport, he instantaneously turns direction, even though he's not in the target square, right? So what's going on is he's supposed to go to where that glowing mirage of him is, which is at a different orientation and also mirrored, right? But we toggle both of those things immediately and then move him because those two actions aren't in sync anymore. And so everything looks kind of flickery and bad. So like, watch, I'm gonna hit the key now. See, he like insta-turned and then moved, right? And that's kind of a stupid, you know, that's not that hard to fix in isolation, but it's just an example of something bad that is happening because rotation is not being handled in an integrated way by this particular system. So that's, you know, if nothing else by the end of the stream, if we have at least fixed that, then we've made some good progress. But then we want to do more than fix that because, you know, as I turn and run around here, you know, the way that I'm facing actually matters for gameplay. And so it should be managed by the transaction system that I've been building for some time. And it's not. And so more ideally, we can get all management of turning put into the transaction system so that, let's go back and load this level, so that when I do something like this, whoops, if there's like lots of people stacked on this dude's head, right, and he moves around, so right now, I mean, it's probably a little harder to tell because the stream is so jumpy, but you see the guy on the bottom is moving smoothly and the characters on top, their orientation is changing instantaneously. And that's because there's just a gameplay hack in there to just set their orientation, right? Because their linear motion is controlled by this transaction system. There's a, you know, there's a piece of code that says, hey, here's my rotation at the beginning, and here's my here's my position. No, there's a piece of code that says I have a transaction active, which is me riding on this guy, and he's moving, so I'm going to move. But I could also step off him. There's like you could have an independent transaction active at the same time. That's like you moving as well, right? So linear motion has that. Angular motion does not have that. And so my goal for today is to start making that happen. And there's just going to be complications in there that I'm not sure what they are, honestly. So we're going to see. Is it correct you're feeling that once this rotation is done, a lot of the animations will need to be fixed? Sure, but a lot of these animations are temporary anyway. A lot of these animations are just there enough for us to do this. And in fact, the reason why I'm working on this now is because we can't really do the real animations until this works better, right? Do they fall if you go through the mirror? Well, they should. Like, there we go. And then that actually, I have an interesting idea for a level. I just have so many frickin' level ideas. All right. Couldn't you just attach the 3 models to the base model like a hat? Well, sort of, but what if something pushes one off while I'm moving, right? Like all these things have to be handled. All these things have to be handled. It would be cool to have a mirror of heights 2 and 3. Well, you could just stack mirrors right now, right? So I mean, this way, I mean, they don't look right, but you could just make a different mesh, right? That has that. Whoops. Oh, they'll fall through each other if, whoops. They will fall through each other if I don't put supports, which is sort of an arbitrary gameplay decision that we could also change. But if I do this, you know, then we can go. Which is also cool. Like that could be a level as well. What if you only had 1 and 3? Then the person in the middle would not teleport, right? So if you had this, then bam. What happens if you push a stack of mirrors with these supports? Okay, so, well, I'm actually not sure because the new transaction system might not do everything that well. Like what should happen, let me go over here so you can see it. I believe what will happen in this case is the red guy will push the thing on the bottom. The gray guy in the middle will still be supported by him and will end up in the middle. But the bard on top will not be able to go and she'll fall. But, you know, we haven't stress tested stuff like this in the new system, so who knows? Let's see. Yeah, okay. So there was a bit of a discontinuity there somewhere. And now if the red guy moves, he won't be carrying the other guy anymore, right? So I kind of deposited him in the middle. We had a bit of a, like a, there was a bit of a hitch there for some reason. Just a visual hitch, not a gameplay hitch. Like, I'm not sure why the gray guy is kind of teleporting in. That would be a thing to debug later, but that's pretty low priority. Oh, it's because, okay. So what's happening is, you know, he's carrying the bard in a, like a support transaction. And then the bard's transaction is getting killed when she, see how she gets carried at the beginning, but then she can't go, right? So her transaction is getting killed, and killing that transaction is causing the gray guy to teleport because that transaction has the actual interpolation on it. So really the problem here is we should be pre-detecting in the beginning that the bard cannot go into this square and saying that she's not even trying and that she's just going to fall. But we don't do that for stacks right now. Okay, let's actually work on some actual things. So let's do first things first. Let's just, let me go back and undo all the wacky changes. First things first, let's just handle this teleportation thing. That's all. And we'll do it with an eye to, this is going to involve adding some members. There's like a movement data structure called single move. And we'll add some members there to describe what happens during teleportation. Right. So, why is... So, I'm sure we already have some kind of teleportation stuff. So, you know, one of our move types in this enum is teleport. Let's clean this up. I have some spacing here because I was like attempting to line these up at some point. So let's just do that. Whoops. I mean, I can't line everything up, but it's better. Okay, so we have teleport. We have these doubles and endpoints is maybe some additional information that we use just for particle effects and stuff. I don't believe that that affects any move transactions in a gameplay kind of way. Oh, if it's a teleport, we probably set teleport direction down here. Now this is stored on single move. And what else is in single move? Visual start, visual end, visual error. This is sort of stuff that only this transaction system code cares about. Whereas this stuff that's in move info is stuff that the gameplay code cares about. And so I feel like we want to add additional teleport information, for example, here. Because it is gameplay relevant, it's not just bookkeeping code. So we're going to add, let's say, post teleport theta is a float, only set if teleport. Okay. Now, who sets teleport direction? Two places do it. So this one down here in Sokoban is, well, I guess 3 places do it. But these ones are the general move handler that happens most of the time. And then there's a special one for only the cases when you're falling through a teleport beam, which will not actually ever change your orientation. And in fact, I don't think this one will ever change your orientation either. The only really thing that can... Oh, wait. Maybe... See, the thing is, like stuff like endpoint beams can bounce off mirrors. I don't know. Let me put that on the to-do list. I don't know if we currently change your direction when you go through them, but we probably should. So I'm going to put that down as a thing to investigate. But what we're working on right now is a mirror teleport. So I'm just going to look. I suspect that what happens is the mirror code registers a move, and then as a matter of like vigilante justice, it just does its own angle changing thing outside of that. Yeah. So here we go. For things that are teleporting from mirrors, we have all this code of stuff that we do, and then we make particles, we make an orientation and whatever, right? Okay. We actually need a few things. So we're setting a few things at the start of the teleport, all of which should not change until the character actually swaps, right? Because there's some lead time before the character swaps, and then while the character is like in instantaneous transit between one place and another, you want to do these things. You want to change the visual orientation. You want to change the mirrored flag, and you want to change the theta. So all of those need to be on that data structure we just looked at. This orientation, I guess, technically is reproducible from this. It's just, I want to be extra careful in the beginning and not assume, right? So I'm going to write down that maybe we could remove that. Okay, so let's go back here. We're going to say post teleport mirrored is a bool. Whoops. And then, whoops. And then what else? This is a quaternion. No check-in. I think we can remove this. Okay. So we do not want to actually modify any of these things, but we want to store the new values on the data structure. So here, when we say add move, I believe that this will actually return us the move. Yes. So we're going to set some stuff on it. What's it called? Post teleport. So post teleport theta is going to be something. Post teleport mirrored is going to be something. And post teleport orientation is going to be something. By the way, I'm not going to bother upgrading the version of this thing because we're already not saving save games, and we're going to have to wipe people's save data because of a mistake I made, and we still haven't fixed it. So we're not going to worry about versioning these yet. Normally, if we wanted to keep the save data, I would have to tag these as version 2 only and upgrade this to 2, but I'm not going to bother. ATAN2 is very common. It is a math thing. Okay. Well, we want to start putting these things in. So this thing here we're just taking this. Okay, so we've got a chain of dependencies here. We're rotating this by the orientation, but it's like the new orientation. So let's just say this is called new orientation. All right, let's put that down here. This is new orientation. We get this theta, and then that goes in post teleport theta. Theta times 360 divided by tau. Right? So, and then we'll say new mirrored So we'll save this for later because we're going to want to do this, but at a different time. So here, post teleport mirrored is just going to be there's additional complication that we may be able to get rid of. So see here how I have this mirrored flag before clonings? The reason I was saving this information is because I couldn't use the entity mirrored flag because we might clone the entity multiple times and we're like changing the mirrored flag on the actual entity, right? So we needed to have a backup storage, but we don't need that anymore if we don't actually change that stuff, which we're not now, right? We're not changing it. We're putting the new data on the move. And so after we do this, we will be able to go back and clean up this old thing. That's something that people don't often do, or often don't do. They'll do the new thing and then just let the code stay messy and not remove the old thing. They're just like, oh, it's fine, it works. That's bad. That's part of what causes your code to decay over time. So, well, post teleport mirrored is going to be this new mirrored. Okay. So now we've set this in the case where we can change it when you teleport through a mirror. However, we are not, we're not initializing these values in the general handler, which let's go back and look where that was, right? What was I searching for before? Well, we can search for a teleport. I forget what I searched for that gave us these, right? 4361, 40. Here we go. So this get move info is one of the places that can make a teleport. This also. I guess I'm going to make a function that says oh, you know what? We put this on the move info, by the way, so I'm not even editing the right thing. We want it that substruct. Whoops. Okay. So I want to make a thing in here that says set the teleport info to the defaults. And that could also set the move type here, right? So move is teleport. Make default teleport info dot, or just info, right? Okay. So we'll edit this in a second. Oh, we need to pass. We need to pass more stuff to this. We need to pass the entity. Oh, this is also a different one. This is like wizard swap. Which is also maybe has the same problem. We're going to look at that. I don't see anything in here that is setting the orientation in the same way. But it must happen, so I'm not sure how it happens. So we're going to just write down to check it, because we may break it. Wizard teleport. I mean, what really should happen, I think what really just happens is he starts turning visually, because you want that anyway, and then his interpolation completes. And the problem is, we may be breaking that here. We'll see. Okay, so what was it called? Default teleport. Make default teleport. Make default teleport telly. Oh, and then it disappears. I don't think we want that. What am I doing? Stop. So teleport and then disappear is like a different thing. We maybe should name it something different. It's just when something disappears from the world. Okay, so here we need to pass the mover. Or did I pass it in the other order? I passed it in the other order. Okay. So when we make a default teleport, we pass these things, and we're just going to initialize these members to the things that we said. And we're going to set mirrored, because the entity could have been mirrored. So we're just going to set it to whatever the flag was. So we're going to say info.postTeleport mirrored is that, right? And then we're going to have some other post teleport things. Those are going to be theta and orientation, right? And those are going to be I also have to put teleport direction. In make default. My writing is really messy right now. The paper is like over there. Okay. Equals mover.theta target. So we're just going to do that and mover.orientation. That's all. We're just initializing these things so that after the teleport, we don't set them to something weird. Now, we still haven't done falling. Okay, this gets it from the move info already, so it's actually handled. Oh, right. So here, this is not called E, it's called mover. Oh, and this is, I should read the code that I'm copying. All right. So now let's, before we try to run this, let's just double check who does .teleport. Just see if anyone else sets it. Okay, Mirror Isles. Promised. All right, let's look at those for a second. Mirror Isles. That's back at the code that we were editing. Or make, is it make default? Make default teleport. I don't know. And then we change some stuff later and so the one in promised is probably endpoint beams. Oh, it's when you're pushing something in a beam, right? Oh, it's the zapper. Oh, it's the zapper. Okay, zapper shouldn't really change orientations of things. Okay. Well, now, okay, so the thing is, we put all this information into this teleport move info, but we're never using that information. So what should happen now is when my guy mirror teleports, he will not actually rotate. He should end facing left still, despite the fact that his little mirage is facing north. Yeah. So that's fine. That's what's expected because we didn't finish the job. Like most programmers, we didn't finish the job. But we will finish the job because in the end, that's just what you got to do. Just going to save it. I just want to have a little more space here. I'm feeling a little claustrophobic. Let's cut some of this stuff that we're not using and just like, you know, just giving ourselves a little more space. That's all. That's all that we are doing. There we go. What happens if someone creates a teleport the old way, the previous way? Are they fired? Well, it will not work quite correctly. So, yeah, I mean, they're basically fired. Like, what do you want? Okay, so now using the rest of this stuff should be pretty easy. What happens is, well, famous last words, but so here's our, so we have this post teleport stuff, and then we have teleport. And we set some things on the entity if we have physically moved. And so we can set the new things. Now this is a little bit redundant because we're doing it like every frame, but you know. Single dot info. Do we have that? No. Let's just say info is this, so we don't have to do that. And then info.theta, theta current and theta target both get set to that. E.orientation is info dot post teleport orientation. I forgot to put this part here. And then if info dot post teleport mirrored else, right? And then we'll say right? So we're going to clear the flag no matter what. And then we're going to say I think I have ampersand equals. Sometimes I don't even remember what operators I have. All right, great. So yeah. So now he should actually turn at the right time. Hey, okay. See how even before I slow down time, when he teleports, it looks much smoother and less objectionable. And it's because he's not snapping to the wrong state in the middle, right? So if we slow this down, you see he actually somewhat stays in the right place. Now you might imagine more of an effect with the Mirage, maybe having more animation to it or something, because it's still a little bit discontinuous when he moves between. But this is vastly better than what was there. I mean, the lines on the mirror are pretty objectionable, the teleport streaks, but those are temporary and are going to get replaced at some point anyway. See? And that's all it takes to make a video game, is you just do that 10,000 times on 10,000 different things, and then at the end, you have a video game. not even exaggerating about that number, by the way. Was the bard just sleeping? So the deal is, right now we have 2 bards, which means that one of them is sort of in the charmed animation state. And the bard doesn't have charmed animations because we don't ever anticipate having 2 bards in the game, so we just didn't do that. That's why the other one is there in a T pose, and like, you know, you might have seen like I drowned her a minute ago and then did an undo, and she still looks dead even though she's moving around. And the reason is just because she should be like charmed and dancing, but she just doesn't have those animations. So, yeah. Am I a self-taught programmer? I would say largely. I mean, I did go to computer science school and learned some stuff there, but you know, what I'm doing right now is a lot of it is not what I learned in computer science school. So there are no levels where the bard can get cloned. Right now there are not. If we make such a level though, so if the bard is actually cloned, the clones will be both active at the same time. So there wouldn't be this charm scenario, right? So here, even though these 2 are mirrored, they're not actually clones of each other. They're different bards. It's just we don't have different bard models, right? They're different bards just because I copy and pasted a bard. To make them clones of each other, you have to like set some stuff up on the entity data, and then they would both be active at the same time. Well, let's do that, right? So if I remember how to do it, so let's make this the principal one, 4927, right? So then on this one, I think we can say turn order ID is 4927, right? So that I think makes that makes them clones of the same bard. And now as they move around, it's fine. The only issue is the bard movement code is not totally set up for the new transaction system, which is why she's kind of teleporting around and being weird. It's because, well, we also don't have levels with cloned bards. So what's happening here, if I hit north once, they'll both walk north 1, but then sort of snap to a second one. And it's because they're both like charming each other and making each other move a square as the other moves a square, but the thing that sets up the transactions doesn't understand that. And that's like the bard code I have to go completely rewrite because some of the bard rules just don't work properly right now. So that's actually kind of interesting. Like a bard clone level. Like, I don't actually know what the rules should be. I mean, maybe you just shouldn't be charmed if you're active, right? So you would end up having, it's pretty weird to be charmed and active. Like, I don't know how we would, I mean, we're putting this little stupid note sprite over her right now, but like we're not really visualizing that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if that makes sense. I'm going to write down bard clones, and we'll just figure out what that should mean. But right now it doesn't really work. Is the term transaction commonly used in computers? Yes. It's a very common term in computers. Are there any questions about the teleport orientation stuff that I just did? Or should I move on to break other things? I have so much candy in my house now to deal with staying at home. What the transaction system is for. So most video games would not have a system like this. What this is, well, on the one hand, this is a puzzle game where you move from grid square to grid square, and there's very strict rules about what could happen, right? Because if it wasn't strict, if you could kind of game the collision or something, you would break puzzles and not really solve them in the intended way. And you also wouldn't be able to think about the real solution to puzzles because you'd never be sure how things work. So there's very clean rules, like, look, if this guy pushes a thing, he ends up in the next square over, and that ends up in the next square over, and whatever. Or like if you teleport somebody with a mirror, she ends up in exactly that square. Now, it gets a little dicey once you start doing things at the same time. So I'm going to start pushing this and teleport that character, right? So like, you know, it has to be well defined what happens in these cases. Right? And she has to not end up halfway in a square and whatever, right? So far that's all kind of reasonable, but when you start dealing with all the complications that can happen in this game with all the different object types and all the different levels, it starts getting really complicated. And so there's a system that ensures that either everything happens at once or nothing happens at once. So like, imagine that I was starting to push this line of like the bard and this mirror to the south, but then halfway through that push, something moving into the square where the bard was trying to go. Well, what should happen? You don't want her, let's say it's like a little mine cart pusher thing, which you don't see here, but we have those in the game. You don't want the bard and the mine cart pusher thing to end up in the same square. Well, maybe the minecart pusher thing should have pushed her out of the way, but that sort of depends on timing. Like, was she in the square yet or not, right? If she wasn't in the square yet, does she just fail to be pushed, right? But then the mirror would fail to be pushed, and then the guy would fail to push, but that would happen like after you already saw it visually initiated. And so, you know, you start running into questions of how to manage these things. And so what the transaction system is a way of making sure that either everything involved with a given action in the game happens or none of it happens, right? So you don't end up with half moves. Because if I could somehow do a half move where I push these and then they somehow move forward, but my guy doesn't move forward and stays up here, then you can start to break the game. You can start to break puzzle solutions. So you don't want that to happen. And then there's other things like, you know, when you're stepping on moving stuff like lily pads or whatever, which again, we took off this level, but they're in the game. The timing on that is really tight unless you do some things to loosen it up. But if you do some things to loosen it up, you're again in danger of introducing a lot of these ill-formed moves that will break puzzles. And so this system, the job of it is to make sure that all that stuff happens correctly, while at the same time allowing us to have smooth visuals of things that move over time and happen over time, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, hello. Hello, people from the Jessica Mac Twitch.tv channel. This is probably not as entertaining as a trippy music game. So it is what it is. Welcome. Welcome, people. Are you saying the game doesn't have undefined behavior? That is exactly what I'm saying. The game does not have undefined behavior, or shouldn't have undefined behavior. Does it aggregate the actors and evaluate them as a whole? I mean, sort of, yeah. Like, kinda. That's what's happening. Anyway, so the next step in what we're working on, you know, we made this change of orientation and mirroring that happens when you teleport. Actually, before we move on to other things, let's just check the other cases that I was talking about. Remember, I wrote down a couple things. Let's make sure those still work. So let's like get the wizard, Mr. Wizard. Let's get a fourth character, or let's get a block. Let's get a block and put it there. And so now the wizard here, so I'm going to teleport left and swap with the warrior, and he should be facing left at the end of that. And no, he isn't. So he's getting the default information, which is just sort of keeping him in the same orientation. So we need to fix that. He's going to face south no matter what. See how he's turning to face a direction, but then he's not turned at the end. And so what that means is we're just sort of caching that move information and then turning him. So we could either swap the order in which we're doing those things, or just overwrite the thing coming back from the move info. Either one of those is fine. Okay, so wizard swap is here. It's here. You don't remember any other game being somewhere in between turn-based and real-time that it would need this complicated transaction thing. Yeah, it's not even exactly the fact that it's between turn-based and real-time, but it's that plus the fact that individual moves can modify an unknown number of objects. So for example, if you haven't seen how crazy this game gets, let's go to this level. So this is like a wrapping level where there's like an infinite looping series of blocks. And it looks like there's a little bit of a visual glitch being triggered here right now. But, you know, the point is you can shuffle this stuff around, and it happens on 3 different levels. So there's a low level, a medium level, and a high level. And yeah. So like one, as you can see here, like one move, like if I move south here, I'm pushing this row of blocks. I'm also pushing the blocks and the switch that are on top of those blocks, and then the thing that's stacked on top of that. The particles are not moving, unfortunately, but that is something we'll fix later. So, you know, like a lot can happen with one move. And so, yeah. Isn't Steven Sausage Roll similar? A little bit, but Steven Sausage Roll does not have real-time elements as far as I remember. So that drastically simplifies things because all that happens is player moves. Nothing can interrupt player moves in Steven Sausage Roll. And so it's a much more manageable problem. It doesn't have to get as crazy to solve it. Would ordering of those events be a part of the transaction system? Yes. Yes, it is. Sometimes we issue one transaction, and then we issue another one that's supposed to happen before the one that we already issued, and we just check to make sure that they don't conflict and whatnot. Is transactional stuff expensive to compute in practice? Not really. It just depends on what you do. The fact of something being a transaction is not necessarily that expensive, but what are you trying to guarantee under what conditions, and how often do you end up trying to reverse transactions, or how much work do you put into making sure that a transaction doesn't conflict with another one or something, right? Those are the things that could take time, but whether they take time or not varies drastically depending on the specific situation. Sausages are taken, yeah. I don't think we're going to have food in this game. We've got too many things in the game already. Could a move create an infinite animation loop? Not if we want the game to be playable, no. Baba deals with movement without having to move by holding or something. I don't know what you mean. What is the purpose of real-time interaction in the game? It's just that's the rule set, is that some things can move in real time. That's just what we're working with. Okay. So this is where we make the teleport. And I think I was going through gymnastics to set this up again because well, I'm not sure, honestly. So we set teleported here. I'm looking for the place that actually turns the guy. Which, like, I think is just happening way later. I think we're getting the normal... Yeah, we're getting this way down here, I believe. And the problem is, this is happening much after... I think we just want to call this redundantly. Let's see. Oh, there's more than one teleported case. Okay. Okay. So we're going to just sometimes already turn. This is a complication that I'm not crazy about adding, but it might be the simplest solution anyway. All right. So here where we are the wizard, he is gonna... This is a little weird because we don't want to rotate. See, we don't want to rotate the target object. So I was doing this thing where I have two teleport structs and one is just a copy of the other one. The problem is we don't really want to do that anymore because there's additional members that are relevant to that other object. So we're going to say found so gets the updated theta target. All right, so we're going to do maybe turn toward. We're going to say I used to copy this down here, so we're not going to do that. We're going to set this up as a separate thing. So start position target, we're going to set this. Let's clean this up. Clean it up. Clean it up. Clean it up. Okay, not so bad. Whoops, whoopsie, cut and paste error. Okay, so double start position, target, duration, flags. Great. Am I even using this? Yes. However, we're not using it till way down there, so let's just put it there. Okay. In theory, oh, right. So we just pasted this without modifying it. So the variables are called different things in this function. Why does maybe turn toward want the move type? Oh. Right. Yes, okay. So the wizard is probably fine. Wizard is probably fine. Okay. Just got another level idea. Don't mind me. Don't mind me taking notes about a level idea. Okay, so, and then original move type. Do we even care? We don't need to do turning prevention graphics. Yeah. I don't understand why that's two different things, but it's fine. We're just teleporting, that's all. Okay. So now, hopefully, he does the right thing. Bam. Whoa! Okay, that's weird. He is definitely ending up in the proper orientation, but at the wrong time. Like what? Now confused. Okay. Here's a problem. Here's what I think is happening. Actually, I'm not sure. So part of my theory is if we copied the orientation like we did from the Mirages, remember that thing with the mirror teleport, how I said we can rederive the orientation from the angle, but we're not doing it just to be careful. In this case, that's sort of the wrong thing since he's at the wrong orientation. He's not at the target orientation when he teleports. But what we're actually seeing here is worse than that. What we're actually seeing here is maybe there's some code that kicks in at the end of a wizard teleport that snaps you anyway, or like, I don't even know. I don't know what would cause this. The reason I have these little windows up is because I wanted to see if there was, for some reason, another movement transaction, but it's just the teleport, and then it finishes. And he snaps right when it finishes, which is weird. It's weird. See, the angle that he starts at before he snaps is not, oh, right, it is, no, this is the problem. So we're storing that quaternion, and the quaternion is the value of his angle not right before the visual teleport, but right when I initiate the move, which is going to be this. So we teleport him, he gets that quaternion, and then I guess we snap him at the end. I don't freaking know. So I think we just want to remove that. And then there's still an extra snap, but I think that last snap is like the error correction snap, which we're going to want to mitigate later anyway. But I think that doesn't have to do with what we're doing. It's just fun to sit here all day and play with a broken video game. Okay. You'll be leaving to party. I don't recommend partying right now. I do not recommend partying. That is not the way to do it. Will I stream Half-Life next week? I'm just not that excited about it. I don't know, like, I have a Valve Index here, but I haven't gotten it out in months, and I'm not sure that that game is going to make me do that. Maybe it will, but like I think that VR, I think hardware like a Valve Index provides some amazing opportunities for experimentation in design and amazing opportunities for experimentation in design, and very few designers seem to know what to do with it, really. I did ask Valve about funding to support us doing a game for that, and they told me to go jump off a cliff. So, you know, it's just hard for me to be excited about these things. I mean, they didn't literally say go jump off a cliff, but that's kind of what they said. And that's fine. Like I understand them not wanting to fund VR games from. I mean, they probably have a couple things that they're funding that are very high profile, and that's it. But then to see a mediocre lack of people doing the obviously good things while they're also not, I don't know. It's just hard to get excited about. Witness would be pretty in VR. Yeah, it would, but Witness is not designed for VR, so it's not going to be a good VR game. You have to design things for VR. All right. Just like this game that we're working on right now would not be a good VR game because it's not designed for VR. You would be looking at a third person game through a VR headset. It's not the right use of the hardware. But VR means good. Yeah, I don't know. I think I would be able to design a pretty dope VR game. In fact, I have different ideas. I have an idea for a VR puzzle exploration game like The Witness, but designed for VR. I have an idea for a music game, but I just can't do them in the current market. So, yeah. You'll find me. You have at least $200 with my name on it. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, the amount of time that $200 will run my game company is approximately zero. So, I mean, it probably. I'm too lazy to do the math right now. Um, like, does it run the company for 1 minute or more? Maybe. Maybe. Are we able to use standard debuggers? Yes, we are. Would it be worth prototyping it? Maybe, but I just have a lot of projects going on right now. I can't like just randomly do an additional VR prototype project. I have too many things. Too many things. For example, I have a wizard that is not teleporting correctly, and that is a problem. So let me go back and I think that using this orientation might be completely redundant anyway. Like, I suspect that this should get copied from here. Anyway, let's try the wizard version, and then we'll try the mirror version, because we might have broken it from the mirror version. All right. So, okay, see that objectionable thing is gone, which is great. This is how the wizard should look. Let's slow down time a little bit. He turns, bam, turns, bam, 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 bam. Okay, so now the question is, if I do this, it's fine. So we didn't need that orientation. Oh, wait, there's a little flicker. What was that? I think his orientation might be wrong for 1 frame. And the problem is I can't catch that by slowing down time in the game because it's literally like 1 frame. Do you see that though? I don't know, like the OBS. It's a 1 frame flicker. So the problem is he's ending up in the right orientation, but only after. So really what we want to do to get rid of that is to, well, do I have like an update orientation? Oh no, this is like the full banana here. All right. So here we're going to say that. All right, so, well, we didn't do it with this guy before, but this looks clean. So now let's get the wizard over there. Make sure he looks clean. Yep. See? I don't know if you could see the one frame glitch before, but it is not there now. Okay, so we got rid of this orientation field post teleport. So we could just get rid of that everywhere. See, remember, I think we can remove this. I wrote that, and I believe it was correct. So let's get rid of that. And let's see if anyone else is using it. Yep. No. All right. Strong guy popped up on the ocean when I swapped. Yeah, so there is still a bug that I never tracked down where sometimes you'll see a weird teleport mirage way further away from the mirror. Like there, see that? And I'm not exactly sure why that's happening. I think I know. It just has to do with the fact that these guys, like the mirror tracing is using gameplay positions or something. I don't know. It's something that's been an issue for a long time that I need to debug separately. But it doesn't have to do with the current thing that I'm working on, which is turning. This is so much cleaner. Like the difference here, I've definitely played video games that shipped with the equivalent problem of what I just had. And you feel it when you play the game. Even if you can't look at it and know exactly what's wrong because it's happening so fast, you feel that it's kind of crappy, right? This already feels much less crappy than it did. I don't even, I mean, it might look bad again because of the OBS frame rate problem, but this is real clean looking to me. Anyway, what's the name of the game? We don't have a name for this game yet. It's not going to be out for a while. We don't even know what it's going to be called. Honestly, we don't. All right, this is great. So that's two of the major ways to teleport. There's two other ones, at least. Okay, let's get some beamage. We're going to get some beamage. We need a power source over here. That's what this gem is. And then we'll get a double beam. So this thing will teleport you 2 squares when you walk through it, and there shouldn't be anything too fancy here. Let's get people out of the mirror for now. There shouldn't be anything too fancy here. It's like I go boop, 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 boop. All right, and then if I change direction, boop. Oh, I didn't change direction, okay. So this is just a thing again where it cached the old angle, and I just need to tell it what the new angle is. Oh, you know what? Instead of maybe turn toward in the wizard teleport, here I can just call regular turn toward. Because maybe turn toward is just checking a bunch of random stuff. So we were just passing in teleport to avoid the checking, and we can just call this directly. Okay, so okay. All right. So that, whoops, that should just do the right thing. All right. So, oh yeah, we're just going to test. So I'm going to go here. Oh, we didn't change direction. Interesting. Why not? I thought adding that turn toward would fix it, but maybe I didn't add it to the right place. Oh, is this the special Bard pathway? No. That's weird. I had thought that this would be... Oh! No. Because this is after we've generated the move info. So we have this catch-22 here because the move info... Yeah. Okay. Let's have the move info actually use that delta. Instead of the theta target, we're going to go right? And then, so then we don't really care about doing the turn toward in advance. This is a little bit weird. Not Rideen. It's not a place in Scotland. All right. All right. We call it from there. Okay, this is a little bit weird. Okay, in this case, for the wizard, we want the wizard to turn. The question is, what should happen if he's bounced by a mirror? I don't know. That's a different question. So we'll just give that delta, the same one that he's turning toward. We don't actually need to do this now. And in fact, I'm putting this no check in here so that we remove this did turn toward thing that we added, because I'm deciding that's not the play. It's not the right way to do it. Here, we're just going to say and then we're just going to say tele found dot post teleport theta equals found dot theta target. So that guy is going to stay unrotated. Wow, I have so many calls to this. I didn't think there were so many. So the zap target, I maybe should have made this a default parameter. Dummy delta tele dot post teleport theta is it dot theta target. We're just overriding that. Stupid, but the right thing probably. All right, so let's try some wizard action. Whoops. Slow down time. Bam. So this still appears to work correctly. Okay. Warrior. That appears to work correctly. Okay, if I go in the beam, this probably still is broken, right? Oh no, because I put the delta in. Bam. Boom. Boom. Great. Boom. Boom. Yeah, see how the mirror is getting confused when he teleports? There's just something about that I need to look into. All right, so this is great. This is working great. Okay. Now what? I guess we go on to the next teleport type, which is purple beam, and make sure that's good. Oh, no, we go first, we remove this no check-in. So we're going to get rid of did turn toward. We'll keep that encapsulated in braces because it's its own thing. Like David S. Pumpkins, it is its own thing. All right. Nobody else uses that variable. All right, great. Didn't the wizard face the wrong direction top right? I don't think so. Let's look. Can people save levels again? No, not right now. That's a different thing. I'm going to work on that separately. I mean, keep in mind that his correct target direction depends on where he came from, right? So I'm here on the left. I'm going to turn and teleport right. So he turns right and then swaps, and he's facing right, right? I'm here. I'm going to go north. He's going to turn north and swap and face north, right? So this looks correct to me. Maybe it's confusing because of the presence of all the other things on the screen, but this looks fine. Are you ever going to go see Miegakure? Do I know anything new? I know he's still working on the game. I don't think it's coming out anytime too soon, unfortunately. There's just, you know, sometimes it takes a while to make games. Yeah, so here's a thing that's weird that we haven't handled yet. Is the wizard is going to teleport off the mirror, and he's going to end up facing north, even though you should think that maybe his teleport direction should be different after bouncing off the mirror, right? It's just that's not something that we're necessarily doing right this second. But we can think about that after the rest of this is done. We're writing it down. Okay, I'm going to cross out some things that I did. Good, good, good. Good, good, good. Okay, so the last one is the purple beam that we are not yet handling. So if I make this beam purple, and let's block it with something for now. This is just going to be a very simple purple beam, and then we'll make it more complicated. So we're just going to put that there. And what this beam does is it puts me at the end point, and I guess I want to just teleport in the direction of it. So if I go south, I should face south, right? In the naive version. Boom. Okay, I didn't, which is interesting. Yeah. I don't know why I ended up facing right. Oh, it's because I have that x-axis thing. That dummy direction is facing along the x-axis. So that's weird because I thought oh, this is only in the case of doubles. Okay, so doubles is the orange beam, but endpoints is a different case. Endpoints is here. Oh, and we already know the direction. Okay, good. Good, 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 good. Oh, we set info.teleport direction, which we're probably not. You know what? Okay. Here, we're going to say make default teleport with that. I'm not sure which direction this is. This is just so we could set teleport direction. That's not the right direction. Okay, that's not the right direction actually. Let's set it for now, but we're gonna have to modify this. And then because we're initting info down here, okay, and then make default teleport unit vector delta. Okay, unit vector Charlie Delta Bravo. So we're doing this. We need to put the, is he called mover? What's he called here? Yes. Okay. So maybe that fixes this case. That is not going to fix the more sophisticated case. Let's see though. Go in here. Bam. Hey, hey, he's facing the right way. Let's slow it down. We still have the mirror making the weird mirage, but like bam, bam, bam. Notice how this teleport happens faster than some of the other ones. So like he doesn't get to turn all the way around. That is as planned. Great. And then let's try the wizard. Did we break anything with that edit we just did? Doesn't look like it. We don't actually use that teleport direction variable that I just set, but we probably will use it to make like streaks or particles or something. Now, the more sophisticated thing that I said would not be handled correctly is what happens when your endpoint beam goes off a mirror. What direction do you end up in, right? And here, I'm probably going to end up facing north because I'm moving north. But I should end up facing to the right because you probably should, with an endpoint beam, the magic is like traveling you parallel to the beam. So you should just end up in the final beam direction, which I am not. So here I should go left and I am not, right? So, you know, this is not that terrible because not many levels in the game let you do this, but some of them do, and we should hopefully get it right. What would happen if you're on a platform above the ground and step into a purple beam that's being reflected vertically? You would get teleported to the projector, but what direction should you be facing? Well, I mean, certain things we're going to punt on, right? Like, in some cases, you should be like facing down or something. You can also set up vertical mirror reflection cases where that would happen. In fact, I think the mirror mirage doesn't handle this correctly right now. So you can end up in cases where a mirage is like facing a weird direction. And I think we're just going to always correct it and say that you're facing, I don't know. We don't want it to be an arbitrary direction, but we can come up with some rule about how you start it. That's one of these weird singularities in game rules that like you just deal with. Or maybe we teleport you and you are facing this weird direction, but your animation is like you recovering and landing. That might be a better way to do it, honestly. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. Okay. Let me warm up some tea and we will fix this. And then maybe it's a check-inable situation. Any questions, on-topic questions about what we have been doing here with regard to teleporting characters? Is rotation in transactions for that? Well, that's what we're doing. We just put the rotation into the transaction for teleports. It is not in the transaction for other things, and we're going to do that. But for now, we're just working on the teleports because that was sort of an easier sub piece of the problem. Because teleports don't have complexity with like one thing supporting another thing and whatever. It's just like you're in a direction before the teleport, and then you're in a different direction after the teleport. To avoid the confusion about the mirror mirage here, let's make this a non-magic mirror because we have those. We have mundane mirrors. In this case, there won't be a little mirage when I step into it, right? Because I can't use that to magically teleport. So that probably looks cleaner for the purposes of what we're doing as well. So if I teleport, see, I'm ending up in the direction that it would be if it was just a straight line rather than the direction as it is rotated. Okay, now the thing is, the way that we travel along these beams is we do a little beam tracing situation. I forget exactly how that works, but we apparently have the data here. We have this endpoint beam info on the guy. And it probably has outgoing direction in it. Like beam direction, I don't remember if that's outgoing direction. Let's just see. Let's see what is in this. Endpoint beam info. Projector ID, endpoint A, endpoint B, beam direction. It doesn't say if that's at the start or the end. I kind of feel like that's probably at the start because we're using that to set the teleport direction. Let's see. Like I may need to add a direction here is what I'm saying. Because this is like probably the direction the beam was going when it hit the guy, which is not what we need to compute his final orientation. We might have the equivalent information though, like to generate that magic mirror mirage, we also had to compensate for rotations, but like that's a different enough code that maybe it's not worth worrying about. So let me just go to here and endpoint beam. All right. And the way that we're searching for this is weird. We're looking for any beam that goes in the right direction, which is strange. This is probably not quite right. Let me write that down. I'm going to make just a note in the code. To look at this later. It's not important for now. This could only be wrong in relatively more complex situations that we're worried about now. But once we finish what we're doing now, we can go back and look at that. Okay. Let's just look for who sets beam direction. Right? This is us using beam direction. Aha. Okay. So while we're traveling along, we're doing this light scan, which is what we do. We say, did we find anything that has a colors array? A colors array is basically just means this is an object that could be affected by light beams, and therefore we have a place to store light beam information on it. But we also have this entity hit data. Okay, right. So that's this thing. That's on the hit data, which probably gets copied to the endpoint beam info. Yes, here. Okay, so the problem is we need to record 2 extra directions here because we might be starting our movement. The point at which the place at which the player is hit by a beam could be in the middle. There could be several mirror reflections, right? So we want three directions. We want a direction at the start, a direction at the end. We want beam direction A is a vector 3. We want a beam direction B. And we want a beam direction when hitting object. And those may all be the same direction in the simplest case, but when mirrors are involved, these may be different directions. Okay, so well, einfo.beam direction A equals beam dot direction, whatever it was initially. Einfo.beam direction B is going to be whatever dx was at the end, because this dx, here we're using this dx to step. Oh, we actually don't. I thought the loop was here, but it's not. We call light scan. Let's see if beam scan result has what we need. No, we're going to put it there. Outgoing direction is a vector 3. Okay. Beam direction B is result.outgoing direction. Okay. So now this beam scan result. Okay. So we're going to initialize this result. This is the light scan loop that actually does this stuff. So, well, anytime we change the delta, whoops. Oh no, light scan is recursive. That's fine though. Because outgoing direction was delta overwritten. Okay, that's fine. So we have the direction at A, we have the direction at B, we have, well, this one was called when hit, hold on. Where the frickin' frack was, it was here. Okay, beam direction when hitting object. So now we have the problem that some places in the code are going to be trying to use this variable that I have renamed, and they don't know the new name yet. So we have to tell them the new name, for example, there. And this is also an opportunity to audit the code to make sure that this is what they actually want, is what was the direction when hitting the object, which in this case is correct, I think. We're saying if the beam is orthogonal to the direction we're moving, when we are intersecting with the beam, don't do anything, and that's correct. Okay, so here, same test. It's probably what we're asking most of the time. So this is, are we going forward into the beam? Or are we going backward. Is this inside get move info? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. Great. Those were all the people who used it. So now, let's just run again and make sure we didn't really break anything, which I don't think we did. We haven't fixed anything, so we'll still end up in the wrong direction. But we're at least recording information that will allow us to do the right thing. So I'm going to go up here, and I'll be facing up instead of right. Yeah. Okay. So now, what we want to do is, back here in, after we do make default teleport, because we know we're in an endpoint beam, we want to say, hold on. So we're just doing this ATAN2 thing here, and we want to do this, but differently, with a different direction. And that direction is going to be, we're going to call this hitdir and enddir. So this one that we've been setting is hitdir. And then enddir is going to be beam dot beam direction A times -1, because we're going backward into it. And this one is going to be enddir is beam direction B, because you could be going forward along the beam or backward along the beam, right? And then, okay, we go enddir, like that. Make default to, because we renamed it. Anytime you rename a variable, you have to rename the variable, right? You can't not rename the variable. If you don't rename the variable, when you rename the variable, you will not succeed in the game industry. Even if you have to rename it 3 times. I should make sure that this is what I want. I'm not actually sure what this test is. So the dot product target minus position hitdir is less than 0. So if it's behind us, okay. This is just figuring out on a wrapping level how far we go. That's fine. And then down here, yeah, that's the second part of that. Yeah, okay. There we go. Bro, see? I'm here, I'm going north, and bam, I'm facing right. And now I'm going to go left, and I should face down. Yeah. That's how you succeed in the game industry right there. That is how you succeed in the game industry. Got another level idea. Okay. This is great. Great. Let's retest our old stuff. Well, we can't retest Magic Mirror yet because there's no Magic Mirror on this level. And we can't retest Double Beam yet, but we can test Wizard. Mr. Wizard is going to go bam, 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 bam. Okay, that's an interesting one. Okay, we haven't done this one. So in the case where the Wizard teleports off of Mirror, it really should be just like the thing that we did, where he should be facing to the right and he's not. So we need to think about that some more. So when we do the Wizard scan here, Dragon or Wizard scan, and we get back this Dragon segments, which is different from, see, Light scan and Dragon or Wizard scan are like different for historical reasons. There used to be more different scans, and I just collapsed it into those two. So we want to know the same information, and the question is, well, we know this starting direction because that's just this delta that we passed in. The question is, what was the ending direction? And I believe we get that from the Dragon segments, right? So let's just say enter is delta, but if this Dragon segment is this Dragon segments dot count -1. I mean, I guess I probably have some function that says last or whatever. But I always type it this way for some reason. So this segment probably has a direction. Who defines Dragon segment? I know somebody does. Entities. Dragon segment has a delta. Enter is segment.delta. So the guy is going to end up in let's just use this ender here and then say guy.teleport direction is delta. Okay. Let's see what happens. Mr. Wizard goes boop, boop, boop. So now we're going to teleport up and bounce off the mirror. Bam! That is also how you succeed in the game industry. Okay. You saw it here first. Well, this seems pretty good. Normally I would run a Benny test, except all our levels are broken right now. That's another thing that I need to go do, is get all the levels back in ship shape working order, which is going to require some more things like adding running and whatever. Anyway. We're in good shape here. This is good. This is good. So I'm going to check this in, and I think I'm going to take a stream break now because we've been going for 2 hours 40. That's a while. It's not, we've definitely done longer streams in the past, but we're going to take a break, and then I'll come back later and we'll do the non-teleport turning, putting that into transactions. You know what I'm saying? Are there any, before we take a break, any final on-topic questions about what we were doing here? Want to try reflections off multiple mirrors? Sure. Oh God, watch this go horribly. Okay. Let's just do this for a second. Okay, wizard in through beam. He's going to go up. He should be facing down. Yeah, should be facing down as well. Yeah, all right. We're going to start in the middle and go right. Yeah, we're going to go left from here. Yeah. Oh, whoops. Did I tap left twice? Yes. Okay. So these are all correct. You end up facing in the beam direction. And, you know, in the final game, the texture of the beam itself might animate to like go in that direction when you teleport or something, you know. Okay. Let's maybe push this out of the way, and we could do wizard. So he's going to swap with warrior and should be facing down, right? Warrior can go up here, and he could swap with him and should be facing right. And warrior's going to go over here, and he should be facing down, and then he should be facing left, and then he should be facing down. Now, if you really want to break things, well... like, why the hell did we ever add these to the game? Because I'm stupid. And for now, I just want to make sure that these like don't frickin' break something, which I don't think they will. It's just the direction that you end up in. I have to put this under this to support it. The direction that you end up in may not be what you wanted. Okay. Input language switching. Typing left Alt plus Shift changes your input length. Thanks, Windows. I really didn't want that at all. Customize. The window just disappeared. I was going to turn it off. Oh, it went to the bottom. Okay. This is like the amazing operating system that has been under development for decades. How do I can't disable it from here. I have no way of saying just turn this off from here. I guess that's a thing. I don't even know. All right. So I was trying to do work here, I guess, before that happened. So let's just make a nice glowy boulder. And so now if I go into FreeCam here for a second, you could see Josh fixed, I think, most of the bugs in the beams. We still have a little bit of a little beam turd back here, but he fixed a lot of the BSP stuff, so you can now actually see the whole beam, which viewers of this stream will know was not always true. After a couple bounces, it used to get confused, so thank you for doing that. So I guess I should be south here, right? Like that's no problem. Yeah. So these are fine. The real question is what happens when you end vertical, right? So like what if I start the guy? Okay, so this isn't even the crazy stuff, right? The crazy stuff is like what if we have one of these just there and it just goes up. Oh, no, not through endpoint. So now I should end up on top of the thing, but my orientation would put me flat on my face. We don't even have a good view of these from here. Let's give ourselves a better view from like over here. I'll delete that. I'll delete these because they're not relevant. And I'll go cam. All right, so this guy, he's going to go whoop. Okay, so right now he ended up in some direction that is not actually what it would be because he's constrained to 2D, right? And so that probably deserves more thought about what direction that actually ends up being, but I'm not going to worry about it for now because there's such a thing as rat holing a little too much. We can defer that to a time when we're actually making levels that need that. Oh, that's kind of a bug. It's just like barely within radius of the thing, and so it was still getting BSP clipped. Yeah. Anyway, man, the beams could use some work. Let's put it that way. Still not perfect. You could just face the same direction as if all the reflection got projected to 2D. I mean, maybe a different way to say it is just like ignore vertical segments for direction purposes. So only the horizontal segments determine. So like the last horizontal segment determines what direction you go in. That would be a reasonable rule. It's kind of a little bit of a broken rule, but so you don't really want to build levels that depend on that, I don't think. But you do want it to be something. You don't just want it to be like whatever ATAN2 happens to return. So I'm going to write that on the list, but we're not going to do it today. Oh, and then of course the other thing to test, which is similar but different, is vertical teleports. So if I delete this and this, right, and then this guy could just walk in there and he should just teleport down. Yeah. We could even make that one lower just for giggles. Boop. So that's fine. And it is weird in this case. Okay, we should fix this before checking in because it's not good in this case that he's changing orientation in the fall, right? That doesn't make sense. So yeah, that's not a thing. So let's fix that. I was going to sign off the stream, but you always can, you always can find one more thing, man. Okay, falling. Oh, because we say get move info. If it's endpoints. Let's fix this. Again, this is the default teleport. So we're going to say if abs delta dot z is greater than 0.5. So is it a vertical move? Otherwise, horizontal move. So if it's a vertical move, info.post teleport theta equals mover dot theta target, like that. That should fix this. Oops. Boop. It didn't. What? What is, did I not recompile? I think I did recompile. Why didn't that work? Why didn't that work? Oh, maybe. Oh, okay. The reason is because we're setting this here. Not here. This is the one for doubles, but the one for endpoints, we're setting it here. Okay, so we're going to have to retest this in a couple scenarios again, but I think that is the right thing. Yay! Yay! Okay. Wizard still doing the right thing. Great. I don't know where to put the camera. Here, putting it back here, and we're just gonna redo. Gonna redo a couple things. So this situation, we're just gonna retest that and that with a non-magical mirror, just to make sure. You know what? We'll throw in a magic mirror into the bundle too for only $9.95. All right. So we're just doing this. Uh-oh. Now I don't have a rock to stop the endpoint. Let's do that. Okay, so bam, that's correct. That's correct. This is great. It's all good. Bam, bam, bam. Bam. If I get in here and I go left, yes, right? Yeah. Yeah. And then if I'm a wizard and I'm going to teleport off this thing by walking, he's in the right way. See, it is possible to make your program do the correct things that it should do. Many programs do not do this, but it is possible. Yeah, a lot of levels are broken, so it's not really worth Benny testing, because after I switched to the new transaction system, there's just some reasons that various levels are broken. Some of them for timing reasons, some because they're impossible with the current timings and stuff. So I need to like fix a bunch of that. For now, we're just focusing on this different thing. Okay. Oh, we still can't end the stream. Because remember, I said sometimes people don't go back and remove the stuff that now could be simplified. Well, guess who didn't do that? Guess who didn't do that? Okay. What didn't I do? I didn't do this before cloning stuff. Right, I've got these before clonings variables, and they're saving these flags that that as far as I know we don't need anymore. So first, we're just going to change. We're going to leave all the stuff that sets them, because we can just delete that wholesale later. Oops. We're going to delete most of these after it works, but does anyone use these? So reflect is going to be u.entity flags and that, right? Yeah. It's just going to be that. And then the move direction before clonings is going to be the rocks moved. Oh. You know what? We're going to save this for later because I want a break. But there is a thing that should only be affected at the teleport time that we have not put into the transaction. And that's if a stone is skipping along and you teleport it, the direction that it's skipping needs to change in the middle of the teleport. It's probably not that important, but we're gonna put that on the piece of paper. So remove the before clonings. So we're going to remove the before clonings for everybody else except this, because I just don't want to get into this part yet. There's just always more stuff. If you have a big game with a lot of things happening, there's just always more stuff. Okay, so we're going to leave the move direction. Oh, and skipping direction. Those are like different things for some reason. I'm going to need to even investigate why those are two different things. I guess one is used for like the visual effect of a rock tilting, and the other one is used for just skipping, right? But both of them need to happen. So okay, so those are in use, but the mirrored flag and the orientation we should be able to get rid of. Let's just delete those. Let's just be excited. Delete those. Okay, and if it's a rock, we save these other things. And then we'll just see if any of these are broken, if we broke anything. Okay. Oh, well, we're talking about cloning things. If we just broke something, it would involve cloning, and cloning involves multiple magic mirrors. So we're actually going to get rid of these things and let's get rid of the extra characters. Sorry, guys. And we're going to go there. And we're going to move this guy there. So, okay. Now, when this guy teleports, right, he should so he's facing upward right now. So like question one is, are these correct? Let's do a simple, okay, let's do this one. Are these correct? Yes, inside arm matches inside arm, outside arm matches outside arm. Which is not the same as if you're doing the pointwise. Yeah, it's a little bit different, but it's what we're doing for this game. Okay, this looks right. So now we just want to make sure that when they teleport, they end up in the same place. Right, so it seems fine to me. Apart from the weird, there's again that mirage bug that happens out there, but ignore that. And the actual orientations of the guys look okay to me. There is a weirdness right now, which is you'll note one of the guys disappears too soon. See that? We're not going to worry about that yet. That's like a whole other thing. That has to do with when do we create and destroy entities from cloning. We need to put that into the transaction too, but oof. That's actually going to be a little bit of a hard one. Maybe not. We're just going to have to take some more steps, I guess, if we're getting hardcore about it. But, you know, the directions, which is what we're working on right now, is coming out correctly, and that's fine. So still many more things to do, but this is pretty good. All right. We have some other stuff to look into. There was also this thing which I don't want to look into until after the break, but there was this this thing that I marked a long time ago. And this is about just figuring out which endpoint info is the one that we care about. And it's a little bit wrong. It's not that wrong. Oh no, it's fine actually. I think this is fine. So I think I want to run through some scenarios where we try to break this, but I actually think this is correct, which is good. How often does a bug scare me or I worry a bug might take several weeks to figure out? There's no such thing. I haven't ever had a bug that took more than a couple days. The worst bug I ever had, I thought it was a week and a half or 2 weeks, and it ended up being my computer was broken. If you actually work during the workday and you spend time seriously trying to figure things out, you normally will not have really weird bugs that take a long time to figure out if they're in your own code. If they involve a complex, like I'm doing some weird thing on the operating system that is talking to 17 processes that talk to 5 different microservices and something way down there is wrong, then good luck. That's hard to figure out, but that's why you shouldn't work on things like that, right? You want software to be simple enough that you can understand it. All right, thank you everybody for coming by. Let's see if there's someone to raid real fast. Oh yeah, so we're gonna raid one of our streaming friends, and well, we'll be back later on probably. So thanks everybody for coming by. Have a good quarantine, and we'll pick this up later. I'm just waiting for the raid timer to count down. There we go.